hate Donald. I was really with Trump right up through the fines.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was it. That was the $1,000 fine.
And once I saw how he looked in an orange jumpsuit, he lost me. The man, first of all, is colored orange, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that definitely there'd be some jokes about that. Yeah. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I think it's always weird to me. Obviously, I don't have a legal background. I don't think it is my opinion, and just mine alone, that, that this is questionable. The motives for this trial are very questionable, in my opinion. Especially
or
this one.
rather, they're obvious, and we're just pretending there's questions.
Yeah, to me, it's
what's the question exactly?
Yeah, well,
Stalinism or Nazism? Is it Maoism?
Yeah,
I mean, what's the question?
Yeah, there's I mean, I was trying to be diplomatic.
Hey, Michael.
To me,
that's my job, Jim.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Right, I'm the guy with the tie.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Hey, you got a gifted, I think you got a gifted membership on the main channel. Midwest sent a bunch of, like 10 of them earlier.
Yeah, it does look good. Yeah.
The way that we're dressed.
Yeah, it's like it's like a reverse going through time to like from suit to vacation to homeless man.
Well, I'm the dad of right-wing social media. I accept that role, the dignity that is expected.
I appreciate that. I think one of the things that's been frustrating me to watch this Trump trial as a voter.
Yeah, he got stuck
like
in
it's my opinion,
Salt Lake City. Some snowstorm hit him up there, so he hopped in my chat and like dumped a bunch of memberships. I thought that was pretty cool.
Giving him fines and gag orders so he can't campaign and he can't address
fighting. You have to excuse me.
Hit pieces against him, which I think is the real reason they're doing it. I don't think that he's going to be found guilty of this. Even if he is, like Ron said, nobody's going to care. And so this is about, controlling him for as long as they can. I think everything's falling apart in Georgia. I think this is the last thing they got, as far as I know. Is there anything else coming down the pipeline, Ron, that you see?
I would be shocked if, after spending all this time timing things as exquisitely as they appear to have done, that they could have brought these claims 3 years ago. These claims. They waited for now for a reason. If that's part of the calculus, and I'm sure that it is, I would be surprised if there's nothing left. I mean, with Gorsuch, there was with Supreme Court hearings, there's always a witness that magically appears, like votes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Democratic.
I can listen to Levin once in a while.
Right.
I think he's one of the more stable ones over there on.
Prosecutors across the country.
When he was with the Blaze.
There are constitutional, legal, ethical, and normative standards to be part of this magic nationwide persecution of one man. Stands to reason that they're holding.
Democrats don't care.
One thing in reserve. Remember that they control not only the federal judiciary, but multiple already crisis-ridden state judiciaries. But you're right. I mean, it's looking pretty raggedy right now. Georgia is run off the rails, and New York is getting increasingly close. I mean, Michael Cohen is their star witness, okay?
Yeah, I think.
How would you rank, Ron? How would you rank the cases against Trump? Like the likelihood, which one would you think was, from a legal perspective, the most likely to have some possibility of actually being a thing in the end, where they actually get him on some charge? Would Fulton be the weakest? Because I mean, even liberal commentators seem to find that one a little bit problematic.
Fulton is really weak. The New York one The New York one, from a real law perspective, is in a way like if you've have been practicing law or involved in commerce anywhere in or near the New York area, and I have, and I'm not a real estate lawyer as such, but just it's part of business here. You know the process by which loans are underwritten. And you know what real estate valuations are in that process. And you know who benefits from overvaluation and how the whole thing works. Real estate,
Of course he did.
in markets like this, is a scam. But everyone is in on the scam. Not Ron Coleman, of course. I said it wasn't a real scam. But it's on the other hand, could they drive it? Is it possible to drive it to a guilty verdict? It is possible because juries are out of their minds. On the other hand, it's a Manhattan jury. It's not a DC jury. And a lot of people in New York of different races and creeds and sexes have known Donald Trump for a very long time. So I wouldn't put my money on either one of them, but Georgia, look.
And what about the Jack Smith case? Would that one be higher, or is it also bull crap?
The Jack Smith case is a gift.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thing is, they don't care. The Democrats don't care. They don't care.
I mean, when I say
They
Jack
hate
Smith
Trump
case, I
that
mean
bad.
Florida. Because they managed to pull a judge who absolutely seems to give crap. Who knew? There's stuff that's coming out through the funnel of that case that really could undermine everything. And people have to follow Julie Kelly and the other doing the great reporting on this. My friend Neil Shipley, not Neil Shipley, Rob Shipley, Jim Shipley, Bill Shipley, William Shipley. Yeah, Shipwreck Crew. He's really been proactive in this stuff, and he's in front of the court. And I speak to a lot of lawyers who are involved in this litigation in the Washington litigation. The Florida litigation it seemed like such a good idea at the time. Let's throw a classified records claim in there too. Although, from what I understand, what is beginning to come out, we're learning now something that we always knew to be the case, which is that the entire purpose of that raid appears to have been to move from Donald Trump's possession across Hurricane Donald. All above my pay grade.
Now that was the thing that Sticks said. Sticks, last week you said there was some stuff that had come out.
Oh yeah, for sure. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Is that related to that case you were talking about? There was some stuff.
I was talking about filings. Yeah.
Hey, someone.
Redacted, and then the judge said, "No, we're going to unredact this," and it all signs point to Biden's DOJ being very much involved with the entire thing, and also that he was being cooperative with the records retention, generally speaking, and they all of a sudden they just pulled the trigger on him.
There's a very big component. There's another backstory here that's beginning to come out. That's the story of the involvement of the National Archives and the director of the National Archives, who is one of the deep state characters in the mix. It's coming out little by little. There was an article in Epic Times. I've got a friend on Reuters who has extensive experience in this area, and it's a big part of the records case. As a lawyer, as someone who has practiced in these courts, the New York courts, Florida federal courts actually, quite a bit, New York federal courts, admitted in the DC Circuit and the DC District Court of DC. It is distressing as hell to see the way the system has allowed itself to be unraveled in such obvious, grossly obvious, abusive ways. And I think the only thing that's worse is how cooperative and how with it. So many people who are supposed to be the guardians of public virtue have been with the entire process. Pretty much, I don't know how conspiratorial the quartering gets, Jeremy, but I'm betting it's not enough.
Yeah, that's probably true. Although when I have sticks on, we get a little bit closer. I will say, as a layman, I feel like the New York case, the real like Ron was saying, essentially, the valuing, devaluing, this, that, and the other thing, is a game that literally everybody plays. I think famously, right after Jon Stewart whined and complained about Trump doing it, it came out that he had coincidentally wildly undervalued his own house by many millions of dollars.
I was under the impression...
Overvalued, sorry.
I
Yeah.
was under the impression
of the tax assessment is undervalued. And I mean, if anyone who's paying full market value on a tax assessment has a big problem. They're always low. We get that. We understand. But for purposes of borrowing against it, he was overstated, of course. He's a great American like the rest of us.
Right. Sticks were
I was under the impression, before that case, and maybe Ron, you weigh in on that because I was oblivious to this. I was under the impression that you would have to actually have an aggrieved party to have that kind of litigation anyway, even though there was no privately aggrieved party.
You would think so. I think everyone was under that impression. When you got banks here that have been paid back in full with interest, why do you think the banks go along with these overvaluations?
The banks know. Nobody knows.
And they get to lend more money
That's right.
and earn more interest.
Yeah.
And that's called being a bank.
Yeah, that's the weirdest part about it for me. I'm like, watching this shake out, I'm like, okay, wait, I'm looking for somebody who's getting screwed over here. I can't find one. Are we really going to tell people that we feel bad for the banks? Because
I think since Trump is paying money also into the state of New York, that it would technically benefit the tax coffers there anyway.
Yeah, well, that's one byproduct of it, is that people said people aren't going to want to do business in New York anymore because of this, because you'll set a precedent where if he's convicted, people are going to pull their money out of New York City, and I don't know if they will or won't, but certainly people will think about it.
There are a lot of moving parts there. First of all, he doesn't have to be convicted. Already what he's gone through is bad enough. It's so bad that Hochul, remember, it was about 6 weeks ago, had some kind of meeting where she sat down, or sent out a letter to real estate pros, my people, and said, guys, listen, we don't want any of you to think that the environment for real estate investing in New York City has in any way, that this should indicate anything to you. We're only doing this to Trump. She is just that.
That's so wild.
No one's buying it, because once they cross that line, of course they can do it to any political enemy.
Right. Or they need any reason they want. Whenever
Or a person who invests with a political entity and helps them.
And New York real estate also, the communists controlling Albany have so undermined critical pieces of the New York real estate investment.
Oh no, they'll never say that.
Which was...
They'll say he stole it again.
It was a racket before, and now it's...
When he wins, they'll say he stole it again.
But they pull the rug out from...
They'll bring out Russia again.
Property, and
they'll blame Elon for free speech about people
that's not
talking.
what the smart money is. Not to mention the overcapacity.
They have their playbook. And they're going to keep playing it. They're never going to give up.
But yeah, they're going to get a couple $100 million from Trump. that'll fix all the financial problems in New York, sure.
Right. Yeah, it'll last about
Every
a week.
day of my life.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing is, I don't like the path that this is going down, because it makes the regular person, or makes me think, well, then they better just yeah. I mean, it's like, well, then as soon as, let's say hypothetically Trump wins, hypothetically, and he's
The election?
Yeah, the election. Sorry. Part of me is going to want him to then stick it to, I want Biden to spend the rest of his days in court for every little damn thing, and like that's the precedent that they've set. So the taxpayer, I get to either.
Thing is, the Republicans won't do it. They're gutless.
Tying up politicians in jail forever, in court forever. Or if, like, I get to have half the judicial system stacked together.
I guarantee you, just like Hillary, they won't do anything. But I don't blame Trump for that. I blame the whole party for that.
All the time, with well-meaning conservatives and guys who are,
Trump's just not part of the swamp, so both sides are against him. There's a few that are backing him, but
Jesse Kelly.
I mean, just look how many of them
It's already a war.
flipped on J6.
I get it, but you have to, as a lawyer who's in the conflict business, you have to always remember what weapons are available to you, what
I don't trust any of them.
Jurisdiction you're in, and what your limitations are. It's sort of like fighting City Hall. It's like criminal work. You can never get back at the prosecutor for trying to screw your criminal client. You can't, because it's their casino.
Yeah.
It's their casino. And with the Democrats, they have so overwhelmingly taken control of every major institution in this country that you're not going to get the flanking support and the rear guard support that you need.
Oh, they should be, but they won't.
Us.
They won't.
That doesn't mean you have to be a wimp about it. And it does seem to me that Trump he had opportunities where he could have definitely taken a lot firmer action against the deep state.
Well, they've already said that.
I don't believe
he was guilty of some crimes with his documents, but he's not fit to stand trial. So that right there, it ain't gonna matter what it is.
No, you can't trust them.
And they're going to actively oppose you while you're sitting president.
But after what point do you start saying, I'm gonna fire every FBI director until one comes in and does what I tell him to? It's easy to say.
My hope is that Trump actually does that. I hope that he learns from his first term.
Yeah. I don't think he can be I hope that he comes back as, like, punished Trump if he wins the presidential election. I get, Ron, you're right in that, like, I do try to like temper people some in too, because it's like, well, if you feel like Letitia James is corrupt, you're not going to get, okay, the best thing you can do is try to vote her out. You're not going to be able to, come back in the same way. But, I understand why people want.
Oh yeah, for sure. Should be a 25th Amendment. But even the Democrats don't want Kamala in office. Because they can control Joe.
Okay, it actually is way worse than I ever tweeted about, or that I ever thought. And that people,
it's bad. It really, really is bad. This is an onion that the more you peel back, the nastier it gets. It's mind-boggling. When you mentioned before, Sticks, about, I think it was you. Only three of us, right?
Yeah, it was probably him.
Because he reads, right? He's the one who does reading.
Yes.
The stuff that was unredacted by Judge Cannon, the redactions themselves were utterly unjustifiable. utterly justified. I mean, that's sanctionable behavior. Those guys don't get sanctioned. Even Judge Cannon doesn't get sanctioned. There's no accountability for what the government does. But
is the Georgia chick going to get sanctioned, do you think? Who's sleeping with her buddy, allegedly? I mean, as corrupt, and then everyone's just kind of like, I feel like they, whoever they are, is like, we'll just let this case fall apart and we'll let everyone forget about how corrupt this lady was. Like, look what they did with Hunter. They let the clock run out.
Hello.
Doc, are you able to go to the detox tonight to see why it's bad?
See what?
See why the phone is very bad?
I already know. I need to put another AP in there, but my credit card hasn't worked for 2 weeks.
What, Legends?
Yeah.
I want to give you my credit card.
Oh, I told Cammie, and she said, I told Cammie.
Fuck. How much is it?
It's like $200.
Are we going to online?
No, it'll be through Ubiquity, the network company, but it'll only be a couple days before it comes.
Shit. Next day of the problem, call me directly.
Okay.
But they don't understand how serious this is.
All right. Yeah.
And now the phone is so bad. You can't run a business like that.
No, I understand that. It's intermittent too. It's like sometimes it'll go days of being just fine, and then all of a sudden it does that.
All right, tonight give me a call. I'll give you the card number, all right? The card number I gave you for GoDaddy, not GoDaddy, for Google.
Yeah.
Use that card number, okay?
Okay. Yeah, I got that card still. Yeah. I'll order it today or tonight as soon as I get stopped.
Thank you.
No problem. That's the Jew that owns the detox centers.
It is really hard to understand how the system gets fixed.
I mean, I'm not going out of pocket.
More importantly, you've got just as many people on the right speaking out, but you've got less of an attempt to actually do in-person organization, like interpersonally organize things for some sort of change. At least that's the way that it certainly seems in a lot of places.
But we can have conversations like this. How many are tuned in now?
Several thousand for sure.
Several
There'll be
thousand,
100,000 that are watching by the time it's over.
So when Nixon was getting screwed by the system, oh yeah, I remember Nixon. and I'm not saying Nixon was an angel. We know none of them was angels, right?
None of them. No matter if they're a D or an R or somewhere in between.
There was no conversation like this except in some, dank cellar, some country club or something. But thousands of people are listening to us discuss this now. And we have Rumble because we couldn't necessarily have this discussion on YouTube. That's a gigantic, and that's the white pill. That is Michael Malice's white pill.
Yeah, I often try to give people some level of hope, because I feel like when people lose all hope, then really nothing gets done, and also really bad things generally happen. And I do think I would like to see, some more. I mean, the thing about Trump is that he is like, I don't know what the best way to describe it is, but like, he makes all of our enemies, the enemies of democracy, reveal themselves. But he's also so divisive that, like, it's difficult for people to then see what they see and then rally against it at the same time. But, he had basically never Trumpers, Republican never Trumpers. When they had the majority, they couldn't get anything done because they were all too busy trying to, like, distance themselves from Trump. Do you think that will happen hypothetically if he wins presidency this fall? What does it look like? Do you think these guys, everyone in Congress is just going to be like, okay, well, he's got 4 years, I'll just keep my head down? He's going to have to do it all by himself, isn't he? I don't see anybody aligning with him.
Well, if he doesn't have Congress, he's not going to get anything. he's got a gigantic problem, and, you know, and he's got several.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one of them is he would give instructions, both as chief executive officer and as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the United States, that were routinely disobeyed and even countermanded in the case of the military.
We saw the CIA admitted to hiding stuff from him too.
Like the Syrian envoy with the crypto was there.
Yeah, I mean, all right, but the CIA will be the CIA. I don't expect that of him. But historically, I don't want to get too deep down the rabbit hole of the military because I don't know enough about it. But clearly, this guy Milley, as well as the civilian leadership of the services, were absolutely working against him, and the State Department was working against him, and the intellect and the intelligence community and the justice, all this deep state crap. How the heck do you deal with it? How do you deal with that? I don't know. I mean, historically, there has been this idea that, at least to some extent, there was some level of accountability and responsibility in the judiciary. And I still believe that is largely true with respect to the Supreme Court.
Supreme Court, yeah. I would say the Supreme Court's been pretty reliable even throughout all of this. Other than the border stuff, which was weird. Other than that, which I guess I won't say is weird, is one thing I disagree with. Maybe they were correct. I'm not a lawyer, but
You mean on lifting the temporary the preliminary injunction?
yeah.
Yeah, so that's a typical Roberts kind of move. I could, like, you know, the thing with Roberts, as everybody knows, is that he's a process-oriented guy, and he's very.
Plays are up, and if you're joining us for our watcher in Las Vegas, baby, get ready, get your plane tickets, get your hotel, whatever you're doing. We're staying at Trump Hotel June 29, 2024, and we're gonna have a lot of fun there supporting the president in this election season, so it's gonna be fun. All right, all the information, please register if you're coming, like if you're a hard come, if you're gonna be coming assuredly, if you're very certain about it, then register. Otherwise, don't. So that way we have an accurate head count. I still love you, but just, you know, register accordingly. All right, so before we get into it, I wanted to shout out a couple individuals, of course. We've been following along to see what Good Logic has been up to with his ungagging Trump efforts, and he is fighting hard. We had a Give, Send, Go that we were supporting him on last week, and he has now given us an update as of this morning, 7:20 a.m. Man, he's early. He said, here, update, timely e-filed our reply papers, all right? Timely filed hard copies at 9:50 a.m. I was informed that the clerk needs to review our papers and schedule oral arguments, so no arguments happen today, but hopefully soon. And so to support our cause, you know where to go find it. I retweeted this puppy. Sorry, Elon, don't ban me. I re-X'd it. And so you can find that on our account, but we're shouting out Good Logic. Also want to shout out our friends Viva and Robert Barnes over at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, and they had a great stream last night, and they were giving us a little kudos over here, and so we want to shout out their work and say thanks for the shout out, gentlemen. We appreciate our friends Viva and Robert Barnes. We appreciate Joe, Good Logic. You know where to find him. And so a bunch of people out there doing good work. If you're not following any of them, I encourage you to do that because they're doing good work. All right, so my friends, without any further ado, now let's get into it. Democrat judge Juan Merchan, who donated to Joe Biden and whose daughter works for Joe Biden, has held Trump in contempt again. Big surprise, right? Now he's fining him another $1,000. We all know this is part of their effort to stop him from speaking out about this case, but the big problem here is that the next possible violation might result in incarceration. The judge has said that specifically and brought it up in court, says, Trump, I know that you used to be the president. He said, I know you might be the president again. I really don't want to put you in jail, but I'm going to have to. I'm like, okay, Judge. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Stop pretending otherwise. So we're going to get into it. We're going to see what happened in court as it relates to this contempt issue before we jump into, in our next segment, the full activities of day 12. But the judge, Juan the Con Merchan, he came out and he issued a contempt order. We'll read through it to see what he's penalizing Trump on. And of course, before we get into anything that happened in court, Trump showed up on day 12 and had something to say. He was out in front of the media saying, we're all watching this. It's extremely unconstitutional. And this is what the scene looked like before we get into the activity. So there comes Donald Trump, the president, walking in, power red Monday tie. You see his attorney, Todd Blanche, is on his backside, and he's also there in red. Alina Abba looks like she's back there. I think we saw a little Alina Abba, and I think we also saw Eric Trump. Is that Eric Trump? Kind of looks like Eric Trump, doesn't it? Let's give this man some volume, shall we?
In this country before, it's a ridiculous thing. It's a ridiculous case. I did nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong. Take a look at Greg Jarrett this morning. He went on. Take a look at Andrew McCarthy or Jonathan Turley or Mark.
Sharp dudes.
It's like they say there's no case.
Robert
here.
Gouveia watching the Watcher.
Yet the judges gagged me, and I'm not allowed to talk about, I guess, his total conflict. The judge is totally conflicted, and you want to take a look at it. And I'm not supposed to be talking about it. But I am allowed to say that the judge has a conflict that like nobody's ever had before. You ought to take a look at it. He's taken away my constitutional right to speak. I was in Miami this weekend, and reporters are asking me questions, the same questions like you're asking.
Can't even talk.
And I have to say I have a gag order. I can't speak about it.
Crazy.
Never happened before, ever. Number one. Number two, it's a fake trial. They have no case. And it's been absolutely proven now. They have no case whatsoever. This is Alvin Bragg doing it for political reasons for Biden. This is a Biden trial. He's a crooked president. Now, it just came out, Colombia just canceled their commencement. Axios. Colombia just canceled their commencement. That shouldn't happen. And it also came out that the protesters, many of the protesters, are backed by Biden's donors. Okay, are you listening, Israel? I hope you're listening, Israel. Hope you're getting smart. They're backed by Biden donors. That's where the money's coming from. And I'm not surprised at all. There's many other articles, many of them having to do with the gag order and the unconstitutionality having to do with the gag order. And it is unconstitutional, and it shouldn't be allowed. And I wish people could move a little bit quicker, the appellate courts, because the whole world is watching this, and they see what's happening. More importantly, frankly, they have no case. They have absolutely no case. It's a political hoax. It's election interference. Anything they can do, and even the witnesses they want to bring up, they have nothing to do with the case. This is a ridiculous situation. Not fair. Not fair. But we will fight. Thank you.
Mr. President, how is your defense team doing?
Thank you, Mr. President. All right, so you can see Emile Beauvais. He's back over there. We saw Susan Willis is back there. You see Susan's right there. It does look like Eric Trump, huh? Yeah, I think that's Eric. And of course, there's Jason back there and some others. All right, so he's walking into the courtroom. That is the president setting the scene for us, explaining exactly what is true happening here, that this is a rigged hoax brought on by the Democrats. So let's get our bearings straight. What happened with this contempt proceeding? First thing in the morning, Trump walks into court. We're seated there. Of course, inner city press, Matthew Russell Lee is reporting, bringing in the details. He says, we're back here, Trump trial. Now, you know where to find him at Inner City Press. He's also got an amazing Substack that we've linked down below in our descriptions. And so the day starts. It is day 12. Trial's back in session. Trump has arrived. Blue suit, red tie, we just saw. And he's whispering with his lawyer, Todd Blanche, to his left, seated at the defense table. Emile Beauvais, Trump's other attorney, is to his right in the lead counsel cross-examiner's seat, ready to go. Beauvais's been doing a great job on cross-examination, dropping the mic many times. Day is getting ready to get started. Court bursts open. All rise. All right, here comes this judgment. Please be seated. Clerk says this is the time set for the people of the state of New York versus Donald Trump, indictment number rigged. Judge Merchan says, all right, everybody, before the court is Bragg's motion for contempt. Now, Mr. Trump, in a moment, I'm going to hand down my ruling, finding you in criminal contempt for the 10th time. And he says, going forward, the court will have to consider jail. Merchan says, Trump, now I am concerned about the ramifications of putting you in jail, but I have a job to do to compel respect for the dignity, LOL on that one, of the court. Your behavior constitutes a direct attack on the rule of law. And if I need to, I will do it. So the case on trial continues. We're going to get a new witness. Now we're going to pause. We're going to come back to that in our next segment. Let's see what the contempt order says, because this is a threat of jail against a former president, against a candidate who is currently crushing Joe in the polls. What happens if they put him in jail? What is the judge's basis for doing that? This is the motion. Judge Juan Merchan came out. He says, okay, Trump, this is my order on contempt. He says, Trump has been charged with 34 counts. We know that. $130,000 allegedly in a falsified business record that we'll get into. Now, he says on February 22nd of this year, Bragg filed a motion and issued an order, hereinafter called the order, the court did. And it says you can't talk about this stuff. You're familiar. So the people moved for an order to show cause, and we already issued a contempt finding. Then a hearing was conducted April 23rd, and Trump was found liable on 9 violations. He was directed to take down the social media posts. And then, in the meantime, before the court issued its order of April, the people moved a third time by another order to find him in contempt again. They seek a $1,000 fine each time. So they say this court now, Merchan, who donated to Joe Biden twice, and who has a daughter who has raised $93 million for Democrats, who literally works for Kamala and Joe. This corrupt judge says, the court has considered the respective arguments of both parties and all the exhibits introduced into evidence, and here's what I find. As explained more fully by this government prosecutor named Conroy, they say Trump violated this order because he made a statement to the media in the hallway of the court. Okay, he went outside, just like we saw, and said something about the trial and about the election. They didn't like that. Court was adjourned on April 22nd at 12:40. Among other things, Trump came out and he said, and when they're going to look at all the lies that Cohen, when are they going to look at all the lies that Cohen did in the last trial? They're not. Remember, Cohen was in Tish's courtroom where she took her stinky feet out and waved them around for everybody, and Angron was like, I love it there. Trump got a whole prosecution by Tish, based on a fake lying witness named Michael Cohen. So he lied there. A federal judge said that. It's not me making it up. A federal judge said Cohen lied either there or he lied in federal court. But it's one or the other, based on his testimony. So Trump said he got caught lying in the last trial. So he got caught lying, pure lying. And when are they going to look at that? No one's going to look at that. The prosecutor says, how dare he talk badly about our witnesses? And by virtue of an interview that Trump also gave to Just the News, which is broadcast on a network called Real America's Voice, shout out. Among other things, Trump said, you know, the judge is rushing the trial like crazy. Nobody's ever seen a thing go like this. The jury was picked so fast, it's 95% Democrat, says Trump. The area is mostly all Democrat. You think of it as, just a purely Democrat area. It's a very unfair situation, that I can tell you. I don't know what's wrong with that one. Why? Because he's talking about the jury in the abstract, right? The jury as a whole. He's not talking about individual jurors. He's talking about the jury. It's a process, okay? Can you not even talk about the process? The jury was picked so fast, it's a highly Democrat area. 95% Democrats is what he says. So maybe that's the problem. He's commenting on the makeup of the jury. It's still not individual jurors. So I don't know what's so problematic about that statement and how it violates the order. Let's see what the judge, how he makes that up. By virtue of an interview Trump gave to a program called Action News, which is an ABC News affiliate in Pennsylvania, 5:56 p.m., Trump said, well, Michael Cohen's a convicted liar. Fact check, true. He's got no credibility whatsoever. Michael Cohen was a convicted liar. It's true. What he did is he did some pretty bad things, right? That's what Trump said. So you can't say that because it's Michael Cohen's name. Now, by virtue of a press event also at 6:35 April 25th, Trump said about David Pecker, he said he's been very nice. I mean, David's been very nice. He's a nice guy. They said, you can't even say that. How dare you mention another witness's name, David Pecker? So they say, all right, judge says Trump doesn't dispute that he made the statements. Rather, he advances several defenses to support his claim. That his actions are not a willful violation of the order and should not be criminally held in contempt. He says, for example, that he did not willfully violate this because it's core protected political speech made in response to attacks by Cohen, and that his comments about the jury don't violate the order because he didn't specifically reference any prospective juror in this proceeding. He was talking about the panel as in whole. Finally, he claims the comments about Pecker are not a violation at all. He says he's a nice guy. So he's going to give us a bunch of case law. Okay, we'll fast forward through all of it. This is what the law says. Okay, we got it. Now let's apply it. He says, now the court, therefore, cannot find beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump's statements reference were not protected political speech made in response to attack by Cohen. And so likewise, this court cannot find beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump's statement in Exhibit H constitutes a violation. And so to be sure, this court, so it sounds like Trump wins on those, but to be sure, this court understands the people's argument that pertains to this exhibit and agrees that often seemingly innocuous and even complimentary words and phrases can in truth conceal a more nefarious purpose, right? So the statement about Pecker, which is Exhibit H, Pecker's a nice guy, judge says, okay, that's not a violation.
Hey, Jared.
E and G were statements of Cohen, and so the E statement is when Trump said
Still got a pretty solid lead on the main channel
and
there, bud.
G is Cohen is a convicted liar, right?
It's like I'll be mailing you a hat and a coffee.
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
17th is my birthday, so that's when that's
They
ending.
were not protected. And so we understand, but facial expressions, emphasis, and even cadence are critical in reaching a determination. Now, under the circumstances, this court cannot find beyond a reasonable doubt.
I don't think it's on this channel. I don't think I have any of those commands on here. I should, but I got a lot going on my end. I haven't had a chance to add those.
They say, yep, he has been found guilty of that beyond a reasonable doubt. Let's remind ourselves, what is Exhibit F? Exhibit F is the statement that is about the jury. Exhibit F. The jury was picked so fast, 95% Democrats. He's going to hit him on that one. He says, Trump violated the order by making statements about the jury and how it was selected. Our order is unambiguous. In doing so, Trump not only called into question the integrity of this proceeding, which we all are, and therefore the legitimacy of these proceedings, which are illegitimate, but again raised the specter of fear for the safety of jurors and their loved ones. What? Such concerns, he said that it's 95% Democrats, so does that mean that they're going to be taken out or something? Such concerns undoubtedly threaten to, quote, interfere with the fair administration of justice, which is a fake Democrat platitude, which is no different than, protecting American democracy. It's meaningless, and constitutes a direct attack on the rule of law. It remains this court's fundamental responsibility to protect the decency of this very indecent criminal process and to control the disruptive influences, which is Trump in the courtroom. And so this court finds Trump is in criminal contempt for willfully disobeying a lawful mandate. It's like, oh my gosh, this of all of those is like the weakest in my opinion. Right? He also shouldn't have been found for this one. But here's the punishment. He says, as stated in its decision and order, criminal contempt is punishable by a $1,000 fine and jail not exceeding 30 days. And I'm allowed to do this. Now, because the offensive statement was made prior to this court's decision of April 30th, and because the people are only seeking a fine, this court will once again fine Trump $1,000. However, because this is now the 10th time, and that this court has found Trump in criminal contempt, spanning across 3 separate motions, it is apparent that monetary fines have not and will not suffice to deter Trump from violating this court's lawful orders. And so therefore, Trump is hereby put on notice that if appropriate and warranted, future violations of its lawful orders will be punishable by incarceration. It is hereby ordered Trump pay a $1,000 fine. And if that the offending statement, which has been posted on Trump's Truth Social account, be signed by Democrat donating judge and Democrat working daughter judge, Juan Lacan Mercon, is here signing this order to take this out of Trump's hands. In other words, Trump is not allowed to speak at all, lest he be punished with jail. And so, interesting questions on whether this judge is ultimately someone who is corrupt and should have recused himself. This was an interesting question that came out over on CNN Jay Tapper asked this woman, whose daddy's a judge too, don't know if she works for Joe Biden and Kamala, maybe, but she says, my daddy judge would have recused because it's the right thing to do. Of course, this judge, Juan the Khan, did not.
So we only have a minute left, but one thing interesting that you two have in common, in addition to being amazing reporters, is you're both the children of judges. Your dad was a federal judge. Your mom was one as well. What do you think? Well, let's start with you, Kristen, because you talked with your about whether Merchan should recuse.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's not going to make the choice for someone else, but he did say that he would have probably recused himself, just given the high-profile nature of the
Because
case.
the daughter?
Because of the daughter, because the fact that it was being brought up. Right.
Yeah, the daughter, $93 million for Democrats, literally working for Kamala Harris, and this judge gets to now imprison Donald Trump if he plays his cards right and tries to ensnare him in his little judicial scheme, which he's already doing as we speak. And so we're going to be here, continue to cover this. Of course, the next segment will have the rest of day 12 trial activity, so make sure you jump over there if you want to catch that. But my friends, we'll be here on this trial. Thank you for joining us as we do. Thanks for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. Thanks for liking this video. Thanks for checking out some of our links down in the description below, including watchingthewatchers.locals.com, our members-only community where we do live streams in the morning and on Saturdays. We'd love to see you there and back here on the next one. All right, now it's to it. All right, now it's trial time, baby. Let's get right to it. The Bragg trial implodes. A witness came out and devastated their case. This gentleman you see here is named Jeffrey McConney, and he showed up in court testifying as the former Trump Organization comptroller. We know that this is a business records case, falsifying business records, 34 of them. One crime is an invoice. Cohen writes an invoice, sends it over to Trump Org. They put it in their ledger, they cut a check. Every one of those actions is a different felony. Multiply that times multiple months, you get 34 charges. So this guy is responsible. All these papers that are flying around that I just described, they're coming across his desk. He's the person in charge of it. So if they're trying to prove that Trump was responsible, Trump had the guilty mind and took a guilty act to justify a criminal charge by falsifying business records, they got to get into his mind and show that he had the actual intent to do the thing, which in this case is writing on the check legal expenses, or define these as legal expenses versus something else that we don't know how he should have classified it. They're going to tell us that later. So Jeffrey McConney is on the stand, and as per usual, we are going over to Inner City Press. You know him, Matthew Russell Lee reporting. All of his links are in our description, his Substack and his X account, so be sure to follow him so that you don't miss a thing. We also have him starting. Now, the pre-trial motions are out of the way. Judge Merchan is now on the bench. He says, a fresh witness today. Perfect. Bragg's prosecutor stands up, says, we're ready to go, Your Honor. And so the people will be calling Jeffrey McConney. You know what he looks like? He's working his way up to the bench. And before he comes in, Trump's lawyer, Emile Beauvais, says, Your Honor, before we begin, quick thing. We'd like to address objections outside the presence of the jury. He said, well, are you asking me to dismiss the jury from in here? He said, well, I don't think it's going to take that long, so why don't we just come up to the sidebar? We'll talk to you about it. Judge says, fine. I'll have you do that at the sidebar. Come on up here. They come up to the sidebar. They're back. Beauvais back at the bench. He says, Your Honor, this witness that they're about to call in, McConney, who is the former, or might be current, we'll see, Trump Organization Controller and SVP, I'm going to guess Senior Vice President. He's there, handling a lot of the finances. Your Honor, Todd Blanche says, this witness, after this one, we have an objection to them testifying as well. So Beauvais and Blanche are both objecting. Well, we'll just have to go through these one by one, says the judge. Beauvais says, I just found out about this witness yesterday. I had no idea he was going to be testifying until today. This morning, here he is. Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, says the witness after this one, we also have an objection to that one. All right, fine, we'll save it for that witness. You know, I'll get the objection then. He says, all right, get the jury, bring the jury in. The jury walks back in. Now, we read through the contempt order. We're familiar with that with what that looks like in our prior segment. And now we get into testimony. Government prosecutor from Bragg's office says, good morning, Mr. McConney. Can you please describe your education? And remember, this is a Trump, ex-Trump person who is under subpoena being dragged here by the government. Please describe your education. He said, well, I went to Baruch College. I was hired by the Trump Organization in 1987, and now I'm retired. When you retired, did you sign a separation agreement? He says, yeah, and the payments are now complete. But I did tax preparation for 30 years, so I know a lot about this stuff. 50 years, excuse me. Sorry to almost steal 20 years of that from you. I did tax prep for 20 years. And are you here under a subpoena? McConney says, yeah. Who's paying for your lawyer? The Trump Organization is. So you worked with the Trump Organization for a long time, right? Yeah. Who would you say ran it? He says, oh, well, President Trump. See that? Who ran Trump Organization? President Trump did. He was the brains behind it. He was my boss. And have you spoken with him since you last retired last February, Mr. McConney? No. How are the Trump Organization entities owned? Can you describe their business structure for the jury? He says, yeah, I'm happy to. Each one is separately owned. So he has different silos, and then ultimately they're all owned by the trust. Now, Mr. McConney, have you reviewed this government exhibit called 86?
All right, guys, thanks for hanging out. I may go live tonight.
It says the
Things I need to go over.
Donald J. Trump
Fucking mosquitoes.
Revocable Trust. See that? Yes, yeah. Who does it say is on that trust? It says President Trump is on there. Donald Trump is on there, and Alan Weiss.
Later, Jody.
They're all on the list.
Thanks for popping in.